So I'm Rachelle Rogers-Ard, and I am currently the Executive Director of the Office of Organizational Effectiveness and Culture for the Oakland Unified School District. My connection to Black education in Oakland has to start with me as one of the few Oakland natives born and raised in Oakland, matriculated through all Oakland Unified School District schools. Shout out to Oakland High, class of we won't mention it. And then went to undergrad at Holy Names, and then did my master's at Holy Names University, and then took a break and went back to Mills. My entire education has been in Oakland. As a former teacher, I taught for 10 years at Castlemont High School in Oakland, and then came back after taking a break to run a nonprofit for 4 years, came back to Oakland Unified to manage Teach Tomorrow in Oakland, which was a federally funded program designed to recruit and retain local permanent diverse teachers. So when we talk about what is my experience or my relationship to education, Black education in Oakland, it is absolutely me, my life, my children, and my community. So when I think about some of my experiences, was really unique to me. A couple of things. Number one, being the only African-American child at my elementary school. I went to SOBEO at a time when SOBEO was not very diverse. I would argue it's not very diverse again, but at any rate, I was the only African-American child, third grade through sixth grade. This is back when elementary schools had sixth grade. And that shaped me quite a bit because I then went to Claremont for middle school, or what we called junior high back then, and was surrounded by African-American folks who all thought that I spoke like a white person and was called an Oreo. And so I learned how to code switch at an extremely early age. And so what that meant for me is that as I continued to move through educational circles, I understood two things. Number one, the extreme importance of language and what it means to be able to speak to a variety of audiences. And then the second thing I learned is that there is nothing more important than education, but specifically about the ability to think critically about issues that surround us. What does Rachelle do? I am sure there are numerous people that have this question. So as the Executive Director of Organizational Effectiveness and Culture, my role is to shed a light on gaps within our school district and to try and work and support our leaders to fill those gaps. For example, one of the things that I have learned over the past 3 years through a lot of our evaluative data in doing work with our classified staff is that we have a group of mostly overlooked employees who are, I believe we are 72% African American. What does that look like? Those are our clerical staff. Those are our nutrition services folks. Those are our buildings and grounds, our custodial folks. These are folks in our organization who have not received succession planning, who have not received values-based leadership development, but who are members of our community and have been working an average of 16 years for our district. It is a crime that we have not developed this group of people. And I would argue that when we decide that things are not going well, this is the group that is often hit first because of where they sit in the district. And when I say hit first, I mean lose jobs first, right? And so I have done tremendous amounts of work to A, shed a light on some of these gaps, B, to provide leadership development for these groups, and also to elevate some of the things that I'm learning in training sessions with safety to our leaders to let them know this cannot continue. We cannot have healthy schools if the only people we develop are our principals and our teachers. Nothing against teacher development. Did it, love my teachers. But we have a whole other part of our schools. We have custodians who often spend time speaking with students. We have what I call frontline staff. If your child eats, they see the nutrition services person before they see the teacher. We must do something around developing that side of our schools. And those are the folks who are most often closest to our students as well, even before the students even get to the classroom. We must do more. The state of Black education in Oakland is in flux, like the rest of our city. Because of the changing demographics, we've not had an opportunity to, as a community of people, to even figure out what are the goals that we want for our own children, what are the types of schools that we want them to attend. And because we've not had an opportunity to look at the goals for our children and then back map, we're taking whatever we receive, right? And so it is time for us on three levels, right? As educators, as families, and of course as students, to really have that honest conversation. I remember having conversations in the late 70s, early 80s about what we want for our children coming off of some really heavy work that was done in the 60s and the early 70s. But I don't think that we've revisited that. And because our city's demographics are changing so drastically, because everything looks different now in the West, right? That the West is no longer the area for a whole lot of African American people, but rather it's pretty white in the West now. And so what does that mean for us, for those of us who are educators? What does that mean for those of us who are parents? And what does that mean for our students? Basically, I think the state of education, Black education in Oakland, is one that we need to craft. And because we've not had that opportunity and we've not held our Black leaders to the responsibility of having those conversations, we are in flux. Teach Tomorrow in Oakland was a wonderful, wonderful program. I'm super blessed to have had the opportunity to lead this work. I think it's important to start contextually. When TTO began, Oakland Unified outsourced all of its recruitment to two national recruiting partners, TFA, right, and the New Teacher Project. So Teach for America and the New Teacher Project would bring folks from a variety of places into Oakland to do what I call Teach for a While. And so as a result of that, numerous folks who were already in the community felt like they could not get a job in the district because we were outsourcing for teachers. Community members under the late Mayor Dellum's work said, we want to have our own educational space where we can go and learn and get the type of support that we need to become teachers in Oakland. Through that work, Teach Tomorrow in Oakland was founded. And it's important to note that TTO began with like a desk and a laptop and a cubicle. And I was hired and given the marching orders to create something. And so it was through a variety of folks that I called upon at Holy Names University and elsewhere that we put really great people together and said, what is it that we really want? And I'm getting to something here about vision, right? So we were able to really sit in a room and think, what is it that we want for teachers in Oakland? What do we want them to have? What types of supports are necessary? As a result of that vision, we were able to write 2 federal grants and received funding for 9 years of work. I am most proud that many of those teachers, in fact, I believe 73% of the teachers placed through Teach Tomorrow in Oakland are still teaching. They may not still be teaching in Oakland, but they're still teaching. And at 23% are now leading in Oakland, whether it's as a principal, an AP, a TSA. They're doing massive work. And it's because we were clear about vision. We were extremely clear that we wanted local, permanent, diverse teachers who would commit to teaching in Oakland for a minimum of 5 years. And as a result of that commitment, we were going to meet with them monthly. We were going to bring them in as a cohort. We were going to give them all the supports that we could, and post-placement. And here's the piece that's different. Once they were placed, we didn't just drop them off like the baby on the porch, right? We said, no, we're going to stay with you through these 5 years, and we're able to do a lot of work to ensure that these teachers were culturally competent and had the supports that they needed, both in affinity groups or amongst other races and other genders. It is imperative to note that because we were super clear about vision, we were able to meet a goal. What I lament right now from my vantage point in the school district is that I am not sure, I am not clear what our vision is. And wanting to be very clear, to use an I statement, without that North Star, without a clarity of vision, I am not sure how we move forward. And so because of that, what I'm calling for right now is that we are clear, even with our financial troubles, even with the fact that we may have to right size our district, what is the purpose and what is the goal? So that in the next 5 to 7 years, I can speak to community members, I can speak to other educators, prospective teachers, and say, here's what we want this district to look like. And I really need to have that. And I would argue that we need more than just our wonderful superintendent to state that goal. We need our community to get behind the goal and to start helping to craft that. And again, not unlike the continuous question about what is the state of education, Black education in Oakland, I don't think we have had the opportunity as a community to really craft and land upon the vision for our schools in Oakland. Two things for me are really, really inspiring about Oakland. At the risk of hyping my son's work, I'm super excited about the music program that my son is a part of. We have phenomenal music teachers who work 7 days a week because they were with my son on Saturday and on Sunday, doing phenomenal work and building really excellent pathways from the elementary school to the middle school to the high school. So when I see that work at the public school system, I'm super excited about that. So shout out to our music department. Another thing that's really inspiring for me right now is the opportunity to craft a vision. And I know I keep talking about vision, but that's because without one, people perish. So it is imperative that I think this is a critical piece for us right now. And I feel like we're on the precipice of that. It's about being able to really galvanize community, galvanize board, galvanize staff to really craft the vision of what the next 10 years for Oakland Unified could look like. And I'm excited about that because I think we are at the precipice. We have the type of people working in the organization who could be at the table to really craft that. And I'm super excited to follow the leads on that charge. And then finally, no matter what happens, every year I go to graduations. Every year I see students graduate. I see students promoted. I see students matriculating. I see students getting into college. And every year I am reminded this is why we do this work. I go and visit schools and I see children excited about learning. And we don't shine a light on that a lot. We do talk about our deficit and we talk about funding and all the other things, but at least once a month, I'm in schools, I'm talking to teachers, I'm watching students, I'm seeing eyes light up, and that is really the purpose, right? And so I feel like as long as we can remain true to our purpose and we can continue to have those types of opportunities for our young people, we really will get to the mountaintop that we want to get to. But it's going to be tricky along the way. So I remain excited by my students that I see every day. The most important strategy facing us right now is crafting a vision. The most important strategy that we can have is to figure out what we want our schools to look like for the next 10 years. It is going to be multifaceted. It is going to require community, board members, staff, leaders, parents, students, community. It is huge. And I understand that I'm calling for something lofty, but we don't have one right now. What we say is we want good schools. We've not defined that. What does that look like? And what does it mean to have good schools in every single community and every single neighborhood? Because I would argue that what it looks like in the West might be different than what it looks like in the hills. So we must have a vision. We must be able to offer our students what we think would be the very best for them in the next 10 years and beyond. And we have the opportunity to do it. So what would I say to parents? Let's start having conversations. I remember when, and I'm dating myself, but I remember when politicians would go to churches and would meet with folks in other meeting spaces and would go to people's homes and talk about what is really, really important to them. They called them listening campaigns. We need to hold listening campaigns, but with a goal of not just, I want to list everything that's wrong, but really with a goal of visioning for what can Oakland schools look like in 10 years. Beyond listening campaigns, we must talk to board members. We must have board members' ear. What do we want for our communities, and how can we hold our board members responsible for moving towards that? And then finally, schools are the mecca, right? So how do we allow parents, students, and community members to leverage their school communities towards this is what we believe our school could and should be? And getting all of that data together, synthesizing it, and determining our vision, back mapping from that. This is what we're going to get in year 2, 3, 5, 7, and 10. And then make the goal, and work towards it. It's the most important thing that we need to do right now. My name is Rachelle Rogers-Ard, and this has been the SOBEO Narrative Series.